Hey guys, Andre here, and welcome back to Hibike Unshelved. Sound Euphonium may be over, but not for us. So, I just got back from a trip to Japan where I got to see Sound Euphonium The Final Movie Part 1, or 最終楽章 Hibike Euphonium Zenpen, along with visiting Kyoto and Uji and seeing a bunch of this spring's various UFO collaboration events, activities, and installations. I'm gonna make a separate video showing you guys all of that, as well as all the merch I bought. I'm gonna be honest, I went a little crazy in that department, but today I just want to give my full, in-detail thoughts on the movie. Now, if you don't want to be spoiled, don't worry, I'm gonna start with a non-spoiler review first, and then I'll go into full spoilers later. And I will of course warn you guys before I make that transition. I thought about withholding spoilers completely, but considering we have no idea when or even if this movie will be available overseas, I decided it'd be best to discuss as much as I can for you guys who are dying of curiosity like I was. By the way, if you love Sound Euphonium, you've come to the right place. On my main channel, Andre's Shelf, I talk about general anime and movie topics, but this channel, Hibike Unshelved, is completely and fully dedicated to talking about Hibike Euphonium, my favorite anime of all time. So please subscribe. As I said, I will have a full report on the UFO collab events in Uji and Kyoto very soon, along with some catch-up videos on some of the things KyoAni announced while I was away. At the moment, YouTube is just a hobby for me, so I don't always get to make videos in the most timely manner, so I appreciate your patience and support. Let's start with the non-spoiler review first. As you probably know, The Final Movie Part 1 is the first of two recap films that will basically retell the story of Hibike Euphonium Season 3. That is, Kumiko's final year of high school, where she must lead the Kitauji concert band as the new club president and deal with, among other things, a problematic new transfer student named Mayu. Now, going into this movie, I had a load of questions. The previous UFO recap films, Welcome to the Kitauji High School Concert Band and May the Melody Reach You, each covered the entirety of Season 1 and Season 2 respectively. But Season 3 is being split into two films, so as I was walking into the 8:30 a.m. screening on April 24th at T-Joy Kyoto, these were the 5 questions floating around my brain. Number 1, how much of Season 3 does this film cover? Number 2, what was changed from the TV version? 3, what was removed from the TV version? Number 4, what's new in the film version? And number 5, does it work as a cohesive film, or does it feel like a choppily edited clip show? Briefly, that's kinda how I feel about the Season 1 recap film, and while I think the Season 2 film is far more cohesive, it's at the expense of entire episodes and storylines being cut to focus solely on the Asuka arc. So, how does this film do? Again, no spoilers yet. To answer questions 1 through 3, I will say for now that this movie covers more than half of Season 3, but not all of it, in about 2 hours. So yes, there are some cuts to the storyline. Most of them are minor, but some of them I would consider major cuts that I was honestly a little shocked they removed, but I think they did for good reason, for the most part. Because my biggest takeaway from this recap film is that it covers a lot more of Season 3 than I thought it would, or could, and yet it works pretty well as a cohesive film. It didn't really feel like the story was rushed that much, except maybe 1 or 2 moments and plot threads, and the ending came to a pretty natural stopping point in the story very smoothly. And I say this as someone who has rewatched Season 3 a few times and even made an extensive hour-long video analysis on the thing. I know this season very, very well, and I was hyper aware of many of the changes and cuts, and yet it still worked for me. I also saw it with my brother, who hadn't watched Season 3 since it aired 2 years ago, and he agreed with me and didn't even notice what was missing until I mentioned it to him. Is this movie a replacement for Season 3 though? Definitely not. There's some significant stuff missing. I would not recommend this to someone as their first experience of Kumiko's third year story. But for people who are already familiar with Kumiko's third year story, again, I think it's a smooth experience and an enjoyable, albeit abridged version of it. And I do think it's worth watching, especially in a theater for all the new stuff. Let's talk about what's new. First off, the new voice acting. All the voice actors from the TV version reprise their roles, but every bit of dialogue has been newly re-recorded for the film. Some of the lines have been slightly rewritten and adjusted, but there are no major changes to the story. The draw here is the new deliveries by the voice actors, giving iconic moments and lines a new flavor and depth. On top of that, there is an all-new soundtrack which sounds even more epic, cinematic, and emotional than the Season 3 soundtrack, which I already considered a masterpiece. By the way, it's already out on CD and streaming, so even if you can't see the movie yet, you can check out the soundtrack, though fair warning, there are some spoilers in the soundtrack. But yeah, the music in this movie is so good, and honestly, so is the sound design. I'm not sure if they fully redid the sound effects and Foley work or just simply remastered what they had in the TV version, but the sound effects and even background noises were extremely high quality and super immersive in the theater with the 7.1 surround sound. As far as new scenes go, most of the movie just uses footage from Season 3, with some minor scene extensions and new shots here and there. But there are a few completely new, movie original scenes, mostly concentrated in the beginning and the end. Also, on that note, if you're planning to watch this movie, make sure to stay for the post-credits scene and the post-credits scene. Yes, you heard me. I did see a guy in my theater get up when the first post-credits scene ended and quickly sat his ass back down when the second one started up. But anyway, I think as far as new content goes, the biggest draw are the full performance scenes. Season 3 got a lot of flack for not featuring a full Kitauji band performance until the literal last episode, or even that performance was visually interrupted by flashbacks. Not a problem in this movie. I'll talk more about it in the spoiler section, but I can confirm we get some full performance scenes that weren't shown to this degree in Season 3. And with that, that's all I gotta say without spoilers. I think this was a really enjoyable film for UFO fans that was directed and edited smartly and efficiently to get the most out of its runtime while giving the fans what they know and love from Season 3 with a few surprises. I have concerns with some of the scenes and moments that were cut, but there were no choices that tanked the entire movie for me. I will say I didn't find myself fully giving into the emotions of the story so far, but that may just be because I've already experienced this story multiple times. I think the real test will come when they adapt the ending. Overall, I'm surprised how far they got in this first movie and how well it worked, and I'm even more excited to find out what they do with this second movie, which is the final movie, given the way they set it up with the ending and the post-credit scenes of this movie. Alright, before I transition to spoiler talk, I also want to answer one more question I think some of you might be wondering. If you're going to be in Japan in the next few weeks, is this movie worth watching if you don't know any Japanese? Because obviously there's not going to be any English subtitles in the theater. And I would say, given the new performance scenes, the new voice acting, and the new soundtrack, on top of being a unique theatrical experience, you might have the opportunity to watch it in 7.1 surround sound, or I believe Dolby Atmos is available as well. Given all of that, I would definitely recommend it, even if you don't know any Japanese. And if you're already familiar with Season 3's story, you probably don't even need subtitles anyway, because again, most of the movie is just reusing footage from Season 3. Plus, well, there's theater merch, so you might not want to miss out on that. Okay, spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Leave now if you do not want to know any details about any of the cuts, changes, or additions this movie makes to the Season 3 material. This is not going to be an exhaustive list of all changes made. Unfortunately, I don't live in Japan, so I can't go see this movie again and take detailed notes like I would love to. But here's all the key things I remember from my single viewing. First off, exactly how much does this movie cover? I can confirm this movie covers episodes 1 through 10 of Season 3. Ending with Kumiko's emotional speech as club president and Kitauji's full performance at the Kansai competition, which is a lot of material, but as I said, it somehow doesn't feel all that rushed. I'd say they made it work. The movie starts off in a completely different way than Season 3 does, with a flashback to Kumiko's goodbye to Asuka at the end of Season 2. This kind of feels like a cheat code to get UFO fans emotional right from the get-go, but it's also effective as a setup for Kumiko going to Asuka's apartment near the end of the movie to seek her advice, so I say it makes sense. The scene transitions to some time before the start of Season 3 with Kumiko playing Hibike Euphonium in the Kitauji instrument storage room, before then transitioning to the Kitauji entrance ceremony performance of Gen Hoshino's Koi. We saw a snippet of this performance in Season 3 Episode 1, but here we see it in full, and it acts as the opening musical number in place of Season 3's Disco Kid sequence. At the end of that, we get the title drop. By the way, KyoAni uploaded this entire cold open on their YouTube channel, so go check that out. Anyway, a lot of episode 1 is cut out and or rearranged with some new movie original scenes. For example, the scene of Kumiko hearing Mayu play for the first time near the bridge is cut, and the nighttime school scene is made to be her first time hearing her instead. I think it makes sense to condense those two scenes into one for the movie. Similarly, later on in the movie, both of Mayu's scenes from season 3 where she's showing her bandmates the photos she took, first of the off-screen school trip and second of the pool day, were condensed into one scene where she's showing off both. Again, this makes sense, though they show this without setting up that she has a camera hobby in the first place, so that's a little weird. On the other hand, we have an extended scene of Yuko and Natsuki passing the club leader role to Kumiko and discussing their hopes with her, which is great. One thing I think makes less sense is that the freshmen, namely Sari, Suzume, Yayoi, and Kaho, are introduced off-screen in the movie. All of their introductory scenes are basically cut, and most of their important scenes in the following few episodes are also cut, including both of Suzume's one-on-one conversations with Kumiko. One of my personal complaints about season 3 was the rushed nature of the plotline, specifically of episode 3, where it is revealed by Suzume that many of the freshmen are folding under Reina's strict coaching and planning to quit the band. I felt that plotline was high stakes enough for that to fill up at least 2 episodes, so I had hoped they would expand on that in this movie, but instead it's actually abridged even further. And with the freshmen's introductory scenes mostly gone and their roles reduced to basically background characters, once we get to the big emotional climax of that subplot with Sari crying in bed with Kumiko trying to console her, I couldn't really get into the emotions of that scene while I was watching it in the theater. On the bright side though, the first half of the movie leads into the Sunrise Festival performance, which we finally get to see in full. In the TV version, we only get to hear a snippet of the march and see a single still frame of Reina's drum major routine. The film version actually shows us the march and Reina's routine, which is awesome. They also play a different song than the TV version, which I thought was interesting. Anyway, if I were to nitpick anything about the sequence though, I did feel like the Sunfest performance had a few too many cuts, and I wish there were some longer shots of sustained animation. The song also fades out after a bit, so we actually don't technically see or hear 100% of the performance. Speaking of Sunfest though, remember how that episode of season 3 was actually dedicated mostly to Motomu's story arc with his sister who passed away and his father who was the conductor at another school's band? Yeah, the whole thing is cut from this movie, which I think makes sense considering it's a pretty isolated story arc early on in the season. As much as I appreciate that episode and the fact that it's basically the only male-centered storyline in the entire show, it is ultimately not that important to the main plot. What I found more shocking was the exclusion of the Agata Matsuri episode, which features Kumiko and Reina's iconic date where they express their desire to play the soli together. I think removing that scene from the movie weakens the impact of their eventual falling out and Kumiko's loss to Mayu at the second audition later in the movie. Not to mention, it's such a fan favorite scene, I kind of can't believe they removed it. I think there's still a chance they'll show it as flashback or something in the second movie though. A few other things that were cut include most of the college fair and pool episode, the Sunfest uniform fitting scene where Midori compares everyone to animals, and most of Kumiko's side plot where she's trying to figure out her future and what she wants to do after high school, which to be fair is kind of put on pause anyway in episodes 8 through 10. The movie focuses squarely on the band drama and Kumiko's role as the club president, which again I think makes sense if you want to condense this, well, dense story down to 2 hours in length. The movie ends with a full, unabridged performance of Hitotose no Uta at the Kansai competition, which is incredible, but the emotional climax of the story is Kumiko's speech right beforehand, so it makes sense to narrow the story's scope and simplify it to just the events and conflicts that lead up to that. Again, this isn't supposed to be a replacement for season 3, but a supplement to it for the fans. Up to this point, Kumiko is focused on trying to solve the audition drama, and in the process, she sort of tries to ignore Mayu as much as possible, so it also makes sense that they cut down Mayu's scenes throughout the first 10 episodes, which also helps cut down on some of the repetition in season 3. But something tells me that Mayu's role will be expanded in the second movie to balance things out. More on that later. By the way, I love how they go all out for the Kansai performance of Hitotose no Uta at the end of this movie. This performance wasn't shown at all in the TV version, but in the movie it feels just as epic and climactic as the version at Nationals in the series' final episode without the somewhat distracting flashbacks. we get to see the Kitaoji performance in all its glory, and we see how much winning at Kansai means to every member of the band. There's also some small movie original scenes before and after the performance to emphasize that. One thing I really loved that they did was during the credits, there's a slideshow of candid shots of students from the various other schools at the Kansai competition, which really shows just how big that event is and how important it is to so many kids at so many schools, not just Kitauji. I really appreciated that. Also during the credits, they played a wind orchestra version of True's new song, To Coda, which was a cool surprise since I was just expecting the regular version that they released a few months ago. Speaking of the credits, let's talk about those post-credit scenes. As I alluded to earlier, they both shine the spotlight on Mayu, which was a big surprise, especially because I watched this movie 11 hours before Kirani revealed the teaser trailer and key visual for the second movie online, which clearly showcase a larger role for Mayu, which may even include an expanded backstory for her character. We'll talk more about that teaser in a future video. Anyway, the first post-credit scene of the final movie part 1 showcases the band celebrating their win at Kansai. We see Kumiko and Reina putting their hands together, excitedly looking forward to nationals. Watching them from the crowd is Mayu, Reina's Kansai Soli partner, all alone as she looks away and towards the sky. The post-credit scene then shows Mayu waking up in her bed at home, which we've never seen before. Her face looks full of uncertainty and insecurity. Then we get the final movie part 2 or Kohen title drop and the September 11 release date. Clearly, Mayu is being set up as the major focus of this next movie, which is a really fascinating choice that I hope they can make the most of, especially considering they only have 3 more episodes of season 3 left to adapt. Again, we'll talk more about the next movie in another video. But for now, that's all for Euphonium The Final Movie Part 1 or Saishu Gakusho Hibike Euphonium Zenpen. Again, overall, despite my nitpicks about some of the things they cut, I found this to be a very enjoyable, pretty cohesive movie. I think the new content, voice acting, and soundtrack make it worth the watch for UFO fans, especially if you're lucky enough to catch it in theaters. I really hope this movie comes overseas soon in some way, shape, or form. Preferably with an official theatrical release, but you know, fingers crossed. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, as well as for liking and subscribing. Let me know your thoughts on my thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned on the channel for more videos very soon, including a report on all the UFO collab events I visited while I was in Kyoto and Uji for the week. Have an awesome day, and let the next piece begin.